Jesus Christ, Shinoda. Hello everyone and welcome to Anime Club After Dark, the podcast that delves into all things anime, manga, and otaku culture related. I'm your host, Alex, but you can call me Senpai, and joining me tonight I have our Wizard of Wait What, Shinoda.
I'm so exhausted, but damn, the hype is still real.
I know, right? And tonight, we are going to be doing a spoiler cast for Studio Trigger's first feature-length film, PROMARE. Now, before we get started, I think I speak for both myself and Shinoda when I say, even though when this comes out, the theatrical run in the United States will be over, you should definitely go check this movie out either when it gets picked up by some streaming service like Netflix or maybe even Crunchyroll at some point down the road, or when it comes out for a home video release. Definitely pick it up if you're a fan of some of Studio Trigger's previous works like Kill la Kill, like Panty and Stocking, or Gurren Lagann. Definitely, if you're a fan.
Show.
this little, independent production called Gurren Lagann. Definitely, if you're a fan of Studio Trigger's works, especially if you're a fan of Hiroyuki Imaishi's work, definitely check this out if you didn't get a chance to check it out in theaters when you can. Now, that's out of the way. Anything and everything from now on could potentially be a spoiler, so you have been warned. I do, however, think that there are a couple of caveats, Shinoda, that you and I should start off with this spoiler cast. First and foremost, you and I are recording this on July 30th, 2019, directly after Otakon, which is where you and I saw this.
Yep, and that was one hell of an experience, let me tell you.
It was. Several people from Studio Trigger were actually at the convention. I actually got to meet Hiroyuki Imaishi personally. It was a great experience for me. But yeah, they also screened the movie itself at Otakon, and we went to see it while we were there. However, this episode of the podcast won't be going out until the Monday after the premiere in September. September 17th and 18th, I believe. I can't remember off the top of my head. But anyway, it'll be coming out the Monday after it has premiered in theaters to give people time to go see it. That being said, what we saw at the premiere was obviously not the English dub, even though we know an English dub is being created for the theatrical release. It's going to be done concurrently for the theatrical release. So this particular spoiler cast will not include any discussion of that English dub, even though we have been informed, and it was also announced previously that Studio Trigger would be working very, very closely with the production of the English dub. So obviously, since we haven't seen it, that won't be discussed here. Also worth mentioning that there probably won't be a whole lot of discussion about things like sound design, because you and I, Shinoda, saw this. We didn't see this in a theater. This was shown to us in a convention center ballroom that, let's be honest, did not have the best audio setup for screening a movie.
Yeah, and typically the audio setups can be rather good, even in convention centers and such, but
this particular one was not.
Yeah, when they showed us the movie, there wasn't even audio initially. They had to go back and start it over because I think someone forgot to turn on the audio or something.
Someone had it on mute. But it was fixed very, very quickly. We didn't really miss the only sound that we missed was in the company logos at the beginning,
which is whatever.
Yeah, but I've seen Trigger's logo many times. I don't need to see it again.
There was an unfortunate part of there was feedback and such going on in the background while there was a lot of audio playing on the movie. You don't even hear it. It's fine, but during the quiet moments.
Yeah, the quiet moments where you really noticed it, but every other time you didn't. But I also don't feel that this particular audio setup is probably the right thing to do to give it a score on its sound design. I think seeing it in an actual theater on a big screen is probably the way to go with that. So I really don't want to talk too much about stuff like sound design in this spoiler cast. I really want to focus on things like the story and the art style and the animation.
Although I think I think you'll agree with me on this. Even though it wasn't the best for us, we can still say it sounded pretty damn good.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it didn't sound horrible at all. I feel like it's not giving the movie a fair shake unless I hear it on like a professional like theater quality audio system.
Oh, for sure. And we're
Because
both definitely
it seems
planning on
like
going back and seeing it in theaters.
oh, absolutely, absolutely, multiple times if I can. But it is by no means bad. I just don't think that the setup that we had to see it with did it justice. So, with those two caveats out of the way, I'm gonna go into this asking you, Chinoda,
Okay.
what if anything did you expect going into this movie? Because we really didn't get a whole lot of information before we saw the movie. I mean, we had trailers and stuff, but we didn't know a whole lot about the story.
We initially didn't have much at all. Then started hearing some stuff about the fact that it's it's basically a ripoff of Fire Force,
Mm,
and I was like, okay, that sounds interesting, but we'll see how it goes. I
yeah.
didn't know what really to expect except some stuff that might be plot related to Fire Force. So that's all I knew. I Whenever I see movies and things like these, I try to go in pretty blind just so I can enjoy myself even more.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. I'm a lot like you. I really didn't expect a whole lot going to this movie. I expected it to be Trigger. I expected it since I knew that Hiroyuki Imaishi was directing it. I expected it to be crazy. It didn't disappoint in that regard for sure. Um, but I typically I tend to leave my expectations for anime movies kind of low. And I do that very specifically with movies because I just feel like it's a very different experience between watching a movie and watching a series. Um,
It
I
definitely
think if you
is.
I think if you go into it expecting way too much, you're always going to be disappointed anyway. So I choose to just keep them low so I can be blown away more.
It makes sense. If you expect either something pretty bad or the worst, you can be pleasantly surprised by something else.
Okay, so you mentioned the whole controversy with Fire Force. So I'm going to skip ahead a little bit here since you brought that up. We can come back to the animation art style a little bit later. So as you mentioned, prior to the movie's actual release, it was somewhat criticized for plagiarizing the plot of the currently airing anime series Fire Force. I want to kind of break down a little bit of a timeline here. Um, Fire Force, for reference, is an anime based on a manga that began airing in the summer of 2019, and of course, uh, PROMARE aired very shortly or very concurrently with that. Um, However, they do genuinely have very similar setups. Not This is obviously not really a spoiler for Fire Force. It's kind of a synopsis of the actual plot from the beginning. But Fire Force is about a group of essentially firefighters who go out and defeat people who or fight humans who spontaneously combust, and they have these pyrokinetic abilities. And there's just a lot of firefighting analogies throughout the show and throughout the story of that. And Premiere has a very similar setup where there is a very cataclysmic event that ends up destroying a lot of the world. In the like interim of that, there's a mutation that happens in human DNA. It spawns a new race of people. In the movie, they're called the Burnish. I forget, what are they called in Fire? They have a name in Fire Force. I can't remember what it's called.
Infernals.
The Infernals, yes. Um, and they can basically spontaneously combust, causing a bunch of damage to people and things around them. And then the story of PROMARE revolves around a group of firefighters that go and fight these people who have this mutation. They're called Burning Rescue in PROMARE. So yeah, the setup is obviously very, very, very similar. And I kind of wonder. So, and this is from an article I read on Anime News Network. I wanted to bring up here. Hiroyuki Imaishi has stated in the past, and he also stated it again during a panel at Otakon, that pre-production on PROMARE began back in late 2013, early 2014. The mangaka who created Fire Force, who's also the same mangaka who created Soul Eater, started working on Fire Force in September or early 2015. So I kind of wonder who plagiarized whom in this. And it
wouldn't
never
be
been
possible for the mangaka to plagiarize PROMARE because there was
nothing was
nothing.
available.
Yeah, nothing at all.
And I kind of wonder if that's what the controversy is really about, because I think based on some of the stuff we saw in the panels that we went to, I think what pre-production on PROMARE was getting a bunch of character designs together with no story, and the story evolved over time. That's what I think it was. And if they were searching desperately for a story, they could have very easily latched onto this story of Fire Force and sort of copied it. But I also wonder, Chnode, and I really want to know what you think about this. I wonder if this comparison between the two would even be as widely talked about now if the Fire Force anime hadn't conveniently been coming out at the same time that PROMARE was finally finished. Because I think if Fire Force had yet to get an anime adaptation, I don't really think people would be talking. People might be talking about it, but not as much.
I think it would be more specific parts of the community talking about it, especially the ones who read manga and light novels and such. They might be talking about it, and no offense meant to them at all, but let's be real, they don't really make too big of waves in terms of anime talk. When people talk in our sphere, it's what gets mentioned more and talked about more is anime over manga or light novels. So even if they have talked about it, if there wasn't an anime, like, it wouldn't have made too big of a difference.
Yeah, I think you're very, very right about that. I think the discussion wouldn't be anywhere near as generalized as it is being with the fact that Fire Force has an anime adaptation that is currently airing.
But my thoughts on this is, like, if they started working on this, 6 years ago?
Yeah, let's say early 2014, because they said late 2013, early 2014. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt and say they really started work in earnest in 2014.
Yeah. If they started that long ago, then there's not there's not that much plagiarizing going on. Like, it's quite possible that the story did change once if someone at Trigger, like, ran into the Fire Force manga and, like, was like, hey, this seems pretty cool, let's borrow a couple things here and there from it. It's definitely possible, don't get me wrong, but if they really started planning this out all those years ago, then the things just happen to coincide, and that's all it is. And they're a bit similar, I'll definitely give it that, but at the same time, they're pretty different also.
Yeah. Well, I think the setups are almost identical, but the execution of the ideas are different.
For sure.
Yeah. So do you think the criticism itself is justified, or do you think it's a little overblown? Because I'll tell you what I think about it. I think the criticism of the similar setups is definitely justified because they are pretty much identical. But I think that's really where it ends. I think the execution is handled so much more differently in Premiere than it is in Fire Force, that you can say that the setup is the same, but the actual plot itself is not. At least not so far from what I've seen. I will admit I have not read the Fire Force manga. I'm going only off of what is currently out with the Fire Force anime, and as of the time of this recording, it'll be different by the time the this episode premieres on YouTube and SoundCloud. But as of right now, there's only 3 episodes of Fire Force out, so I don't have a lot to judge it on.
4 episodes, right?
Oh yeah, 4 episodes. Yes, excuse me.
Yeah. Um, Unfortunately, I'm literally on the same boat. I haven't read the manga. I don't know where the plot of Fire Force is going and how they're doing it. The only thing that's eerily similar is the setup, how it begins,
Yeah,
and all that. Otherwise, they are very different. And hell,
yeah,
even the main characters, their setups are pretty different as well. Is the thing.
yeah. And they also have very different backstories.
Yeah, without a doubt.
So yeah, I think some of that criticism is definitely justified when it comes to the setup, but I think a lot of it is kind of being overblown. And I really honestly don't think it matters, because it just it, there's a lot of other anime that have very similar setups that don't get near this much comparison. So I really don't think it matters that much. You can certainly enjoy both, which I am currently doing. I thoroughly enjoyed Premiere, and so far with the Fire Force anime, I'm really enjoying it. I think I hope I speak for you too, Shinoda, when we say that you should definitely give Fire Force a shot, because it's really good.
Oh yeah, you do. I love it, and I know a lot of other people are loving it. Uh, Go watch it.
All right, well let's get to the actual plot of this story, because that's where, oh my god, holy fuck. I watched this and I don't know what the plot is really, but I don't care either. So the movie's overall plot, as we have said, kind of revolves around these people called the Burnish, who kind of spontaneously combust if they don't keep control of their emotions, and uh, they cause widespread damage to buildings and people. And the story itself revolves around a group of people whose job it basically is to go out and defeat people who kind of these Burnish who lose control and start lighting shit on fire. Now that plot itself, actually, the one thing I thought about a lot while I was watching this movie is like, this kind of plot would make a great series, but I think they handled it really well for, what was it, like an hour and 35-minute long movie?
I think it was 2 hours, 2.5 hours actually.
Was it really that long?
Yeah, it was really that long because like the
1
movie.
hour and 51 minutes. So yeah, it was nearly 2 hours long. Wow.
Yeah, the movie started at like 6 o'clock, if I remember right,
Hmm.
and the panel afterwards didn't start until like 9:15.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it was nearly a 2 hour long film. Certainly didn't feel like it when I was watching it. Which is that I personally, I think it's a good thing, because it means that it was so good. I was so excited through the whole thing.
You really
Um.
couldn't tell. You could, I mean, sometimes you could tell the passage of time, but the movie is so hype. You're captured by it. You really can't tell.
Yeah, for sure. I do want to. So the first 5 minutes of this movie are fucking amazing. It expertly establishes the world as it is. It shows you what's kind of happened in the 30 years since the Burnish appeared. Um,
It was exposition done right.
it was exposition without any actual dialogue. Like, there was no dialogue in the first 5 minutes, but you knew exactly what was going on. Like, that's how you fucking do backstory exposition at the beginning of a movie or a series.
You show,
It's
not
literally
tell.
perfect.
Don't treat your audience as just a bunch of dumb fucks. Sorry for my language.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's true. You're absolutely right. I mean, as much as this movie was about just having a good time and being very, very trigger, it never once assumed its audience was stupid.
Yeah. If anything, it asks you to think about a couple things here and there. Now, it's nothing
Yeah.
like overly complex, but they do ask you to think about some things. They even
It's certainly not like Monogatari levels of exposition.
no, nothing close to that level. No way.
But I thought it was brilliant. You know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of the very beginning of Kill la Kill. How just expertly set up that was, and they didn't need a whole lot of dialogue, and it's like, all right, here's what we got, let's go.
And it definitely helped. There's not too much to be done. They're like, this is the world. You see how it is. Let's throw you into this story specifically.
Yeah. And it jumps right into introducing the main characters. I could not have asked for a better introduction to the characters, the setting, and the plot than what we actually got in the first 5 to 10 minutes of this show. The first action sequence in the show is absolutely perfect. I could not imagine it being directed any better. Where they're going to a high-rise fire where a burnished fire is taking place, and they're trying to rescue as many people as possible. And that's when they first meet the main villain of this movie, Leo. What was his last name? I forget. Leo Fortia, who is the leader of a terrorist band of Burnish called Mad Burnish. And you get in the process, you see him in the process of getting captured, which we later learn was he kind of let himself be captured on purpose. But that whole sequence, I could not have imagined it being directed any better, and I attribute all of that to the absolute brilliance of Hiroyuki Imaishi.
I seriously, I have to agree. I didn't expect it to. The very first scene, I didn't expect it to be that hype or like that much going on. I really wasn't. And like, all while introducing the main characters of the movie, I was just like, wow, they are doing
Yeah.
all this. And it's
And not
done
just the main
brilliantly.
characters. They use this opportunity to introduce a lot of like secondary characters as well.
Yeah. And the fact that they did all that, I honestly wasn't expecting them to introduce us to Leo until like maybe 15 to 20 minutes in. No,
Yeah, at least maybe a quarter of the way into the movie.
they introduced us him very early off. Of course, we learn why they did it in that way just well throughout the movie, honestly. But still, it was an unexpected surprise. A good one, though. A really good one. It definitely helped out his character being introduced so early. You've really got to understand him throughout the whole movie because he was introduced so early as well.
Yep. Something else that is established very early on is that there's going to be a lot of callbacks to previous Trigger works, and especially to previous works by Hiroyuki Imaishi. A good example that happens very, very early is the fact that I want to call it a mech, but it's not really a mech. It's basically just a giant, like, I don't know, robotic suit that the character wears, but it's a firefighting mech is essentially what it is. It's called Matoi Tech. Obviously, that's a reference to Kill la Kill's main character, Ryuko Matoi.
Yeah.
Everyone in the theater got a kick out of that, for sure. I don't know. I personally loved a lot of the callbacks that we got throughout this work. I mean, that was really the first time I saw a big callback to a previous Trigger work, but throughout the entire run of the movie, they're just peppered throughout.
Yeah, and when we say peppered, we mean they are really in there. So there was a panel afterwards that Trigger was talking about the movie and everything, and they said to us, if you really pay attention, there are references to all Trigger works inside this movie. And I was like, holy shit, yeah, I see that, because if you just like pay attention to the movie, you will see so many things that
Mm-hmm.
are peppered in there. You're just like, I recognize that. And
Which is kind of why that statement that he made is kind of why I'm really excited to see it again, because he did say that there are genuinely references to just about every other Trigger work that they've ever made, and then after he said that, I'm thinking, well, I know I missed a couple because there were some that I didn't see. So I'm really looking forward to seeing this again and keeping an eye out for all of those references and like Easter eggs.
Which Easter egg did just a quick thing. Which Easter egg did you like the most? Was it the Matoi or was there something else that you really
I
liked?
can tell you exactly which one I loved. It's toward the end of the movie when they have their giant ass pull of a mech, Deus Ex Machina. That's literally a Deus Ex Machina. And and what's the little like the scientist character? I forget her name.
The sister of
No, the one like the inventor. God, what was her name?
oh, the old man?
No, the inventor, the little like lolly girl.
Oh,
Thaima, that was her
Daima,
name.
yeah.
Yeah, she she looks at Gallo, the main character, and says, "I modified it. It has a drill."
Oh
And
my God.
it looks just like the drill from
It
fucking
literally was. It
Communist
doesn't even
Gurren.
just look like it. It literally was. And
It literally looked just like it, and he uses it the exact same way.
guys, let me tell you, when they told us that and then immediately showed us that, the entire room exploded. Oh my
I mean, did
God,
you
the
expect anything
energy.
else?
It was
Did you expect
amazing.
anything else? I mean that was probably my favorite callback or reference to a previous trigger work, and it wasn't even like some of the callbacks were sort of subtle, but the ones like this were the ones that I loved. I'm looking forward to finding out where the Easter egg for Little Witch Academia is because I certainly missed it. Um, I so I hope that's why I really want to see it again. But yeah,
I my one of my more favorite references was the Evangelion Easter egg they had in there, where the engine of the warp gate, where the base for it, where it was based on, once you saw it, you immediately recognized it as the
it looks like one of
headquarters.
the angels.
No, it was the headquarters from
It
Evangelion.
was. It was, but it also looked like one of the angels.
Yeah, so it was a two-in-one reference, but still, it was really great. And I was like, hey, I love that. I really can't wait to go back and see it because I'm gonna be looking for the references next time I go see this movie.
Oh yeah, for sure. Um, I oh man, I could talk about these callbacks all day. I mean, suffice to say, I think both myself and Yuchinoda and everybody in that room who was a Trigger fan very much appreciated these callbacks, and I don't really think most of them served really any other purpose than fan service for Trigger fans.
It that's all it literally was. It was just fan service for those who know, and it's great. If you don't know, it doesn't matter too much because it's like it's just part of the movie. But if you actually know about it, it's a reference for you. It's an Easter egg, and it's
Yeah.
even better because
And
of
let's be
that.
honest, I mean, that's the whole purpose of Easter eggs are typically because of fan service.
Yeah, exactly. It's for those people who are just a higher fan. That's all it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Um so as the story goes on, obviously we get the main villain and the main character, Gallo and Leo. Gallo, just that name just makes me laugh some internally every time I say it because you just add one L to it and it becomes the Spanish word for rooster. um, which is even more funny because his hair looks like a rooster's crown. I I really hope that was the intention behind choosing that name. I really, really do. Even though I doubt it. But then again, this is Trigger, so who knows? Um, but as the story goes on, they find out that they kind of have a common enemy in Cray Foresight, who is basically like, what? How the fuck can I describe Cray Foresight? He's basically your textbook definition of a mustache twirling villain. I mean, is that fair?
Uh, I think he's a little bit above that, honestly.
You
Like,
think he's more subtle than that?
Just a bit.
I,
Like you
I
can.
think that okay. When he's kind of hiding in his like mask of being a civilized human being, I would say yeah he's more subtle than that. But once the mask falls off, he becomes a textbook mustache twirling villain.
Yeah, I mean, even still towards the end of it, he wasn't doing anything for necessarily evil reasons. He was just trying to still look out for people and such. So I
He
wouldn't
was
say,
doing the wrong thing, but for the right reasons.
yeah. So I would say he's different in that way. It truly wasn't for like evil reasons or anything. He was just trying to do what he can to ensure the survival of people. But
Yeah,
he just
I
went
will
about
say
it
that,
in the best way he thought possible, which I could see
which wasn't
why.
great.
It's the logical way, honestly. I can very realistically see why he did it, and like if you think about it correctly, it's what he did was right. Like everything
But
that
also
came out
kind
in
of
the
wrong.
end was just by chance. If that didn't show up at all, then it just what he did would have ensured their survival.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, his plans seemed to actually be working. It wasn't necessarily the right thing to do, but it seemed to be a plan that worked. With capturing the Burnish and using them to fuel a spaceship. The plan logically was kind of consistent and seemed to work. It just wasn't the right thing to do. It certainly wasn't the ethical thing to do.
Oh, it wasn't at all, but when you're in a situation like that, ethics are questionable at best.
Yes. So and then toward the end we get
Now, there was one person that was a rather mustache twirling villain, and like the moment you saw him, you're just like, wow, this guy, he couldn't be any more obvious of a villain if you tried. You really you really couldn't mistake him. Like you see him and his character, his entire character design is just bad guy.
are you talking about Vulcan?
I am indeed talking about Vulcan. I love him. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely love him. He's so over the top, and God, I love Vulcan. He's one of my
I
favorite
love the fact
characters.
I love the fact at the end when his armor gets knocked off, you find out he's just a really small man inside there.
Even that's a reference to something else, if I remember right. I can't remember what exactly, but
I just thought that was fucking hysterical when he got his body got knocked out of the armor and he realized he's just a really short, scrawny man in a giant suit. Yeah, that was pretty great. Yeah, he definitely is a mustache twirling villain for sure. I mean, all he cares about is doing the wrong things for the wrong reasons. Um, so as the plot of the movie wraps up, we get what can only be described as an ass pull of all ass pulls in the plot. Or basically the main characters come across this buried base, I guess you would call it,
yeah,
underneath a frozen lake that
a
the main
research
character
base.
just happened the main character just happened to go to all the time and never notice anything under there. And they find out that Crave Foresight was involved in basically a murder plot to just gain power and prestige for himself. Like that's really the only reason he did it. And this other guy, whose name briefly escapes me, it was fuck.
The scientist dude.
Uh,
Uh,
Prometh, was that his name?
yes.
I think that was his name. Deus Prometh. Yeah, that's his name. Deus Prometh. Um, and basically says that he was killed by Crave Foresight, and in the interim, he's been designing this giant fucking mech to to go fight against Crave Foresight to stop him from what he's trying to do because reasons. And they even like acknowledge the asspullery of this whole plot development within the movie because one of the characters asks as this computer like recreation of this
Why us?
character who's dead. Why us? And he's like, oh, no reason. You're not special or anything. And
You
then they ask
literally
the
just
obvious
fell
question.
into here, and it just happened by chance. That's literally it.
Yeah.
It could have
And
been
then they
anyone.
ask the obvious follow-up question. Well, what would have happened if no one had come here? And the legitimate response was, meh. I guess the Earth would have just been destroyed.
I loved it. The
Great
movie is
fucking
very
planning.
blatant about it. It's like, no, there
This movie is
isn't
very-
anyone like special or out there. No, if this thing didn't happen by chance, everything would have gone to shit.
Yeah, the movie is very blatant about the fact that this is an asshole. So much so that they actually go out of their way to like tell you it's an asshole.
But that's what made it so enjoyable. Oh my god!
It's certainly what it is. It is. I no. There's no question that the whole assholery at the end is completely deliberate, but I don't care. It doesn't matter. Because at the end of the day, there's a phrase for what this movie is. At the end of the day, it's what's known as a popcorn flick. You don't go to it for deep probing dialogue. You don't go to it for like cosmic questions. You see this movie to have a good time. That's what PROMARE is for. It's literally only exists to have a good time watching something on screen, and I think it accomplishes that perfectly. And that scene that I just mentioned where they have the giant ass pull that's acknowledged by the cast is proof positive of that.
It really is. It's not a life-changing experience or anything like that. I'll be honest, but if it's just there for if you're a fan of Trigger, like you're gonna go and enjoy the shit out of this movie. That's what it's there
Yeah.
for.
Absolutely. Which leads me to believe that at the end of the day, this entire movie was just a love letter to Trigger fans. I believe that, but would you say that's true, Chinoda?
I would absolutely 100% say that's literally all it is. It's just a love letter, and it's a love letter that is happily received by us fans because holy
Absolutely.
shit.
I mean, I've said it on the podcast many, many times. I'll say it again. I'm a Trigger whore. I love just about everything they've made except Key Sniper, but we don't talk about that. Even geniuses have bad days. And I think that you were saying it right after the movie because you looked at me and you pointed to the screen and you're like, did Trigger really out-Trigger themselves? And I think, yeah, they did. I mean, I think that what you saw in this movie was just a way to have fun and a way for Imaishi to show just how creatively he can create a popcorn flick.
Although, to be fair, if you had the popcorn, you wouldn't be eating it because your jaw would just be open the whole time like, holy
On the floor,
fuck.
yeah, for sure. For sure. Oh, and also, at the very end, in true Trigger fashion, where does this movie end up? Space.
Yeah. Literally, like, I don't think even... No, it's like halfway into the movie, that's when they first started mentioning space, and when that came up, I looked to my left and looked at Alex, and and I just like signaled to him,
Space?
like space, like they always go to space, and he just like gave a little laugh, and we were both just like, oh my god, like I think both of us were somewhat expecting space to come at some point, but when they did do it,
I have to say this.
Okay.
At this point, when I watch anything by Studio Trigger, my initial question I have whenever I start anything is, how are they getting to space?
It's honestly fair at this point. They've repeatedly shown they are very much hoarse for it.
And it always works. God damn it, it always works. Like, it always makes... Well, except for, I don't know how much sense it made in Darling in the Franxx, but at least they kind of tried to make it work. But it never fails. Even Little Witch Academia ended up in space, and I'm like, Jesus Christ. But yeah, I think it's fair to say that Trigger out-triggered themselves, definitely, with this movie. Imaishi out-Imaishi'd himself.
Which was damn impressive. Like, I didn't... it's literally like the first thing I said once the movie was over. Just like, how the fuck did they just out-trigger themselves?
And, you know, it's funny because there's so many Trigger works, especially works by Imaishi, like well, most notably Gurren Lagann, which I think you can draw a lot of parallels to the main character of this movie, Gallo, with Kamina. Um, not just with his design, but with his personality too. Um, in that, I think they're both examples of there's so much talk these days about like toxic masculinity, which is it just makes me cringe every time I see it. But I think Imaishi has like figured out a formula for what positive masculinity can look like. And he makes male main characters that just exemplify that ideal.
He really does, and that makes it really great because it's like these are just like good and positive characters without like some horrible or distasteful taste that you can just look up to or just really enjoy, and I appreciate that. I really do.
Yeah, I do too. As you and I have stated, I mean, this is not there's no story here that's going to change your life. There's no like big cosmic questions that are being asked or answered. There's no really great even twist in the movie uh, at all, really, except finding out at the end that Cray Forsyth is one of the Burnish. I really kind of wasn't expecting that, but at the same time, I kind of was.
Like, we
Um,
saw a hint to something. We didn't know exactly what. Sometime in the movie, we just didn't know what it was because we saw his hand glowing. But it
yeah,
that
I
secret
didn't.
wasn't revealed until like the very end, and that was a huge surprise.
That's really the only twist that's in the movie. I mean, this story is just fun, and I think we talk on the podcast all the time about having really strong stories, good writing, and stuff, and that's all very well and good for dramatic and um
Serious anime.
yes,
But it's not
serious
always necessary.
stuff.
It's not always
No,
necessary.
it's not.
Sometimes you just need to sit down, have fun, have a good time, and that's all that's needed. And this provides that.
And I'll tell you what, Trigger's becoming really good at that. Because I'll be honest, I love Trigger's work, but I wouldn't say that any of it is particularly serious or life impactful. But at the end of the day, a vast majority of Trigger's work is just fun to watch.
Yeah.
And this film is no different. I think it's this Premiere was just 100% bottled Trigger is what it was.
No. You're saying bottle trigger. I would say it's more like if trigger was made out of cocaine, then you just like.
God.
Oh
Okay,
my
I
god.
wasn't gonna go for the drug reference, but since you've gone for it, I will agree with you.
Listen, it was
Um,
pure unadulterated trigger, and oh my god.
See, you're so excited you can't even get the words out.
Speaking
All
of
right.
watching, though, shall we talk about its animation and art style?
Yeah, I
It
I,
was
I want I
unique.
want to yeah I want to wrap this up with talking about some of the more uh technical aspects of the production. So we'll start out with the animation art style. They went with a very, very unique cell shaded art style with copious amounts of CGI. Um, I think first of all, can we talk about the CGI that was utilized first?
Okay.
I think certainly. I certainly think the CGI that when it was used in this movie definitely suited the cell shaded art style. I think that I don't know because I'm not an animator, but I think it's probably easier to do 3D animation with a cell shaded art style. Don't quote me on that, as I said, I'm not an animator, but I think that the art style they went with made the CGI look better.
It it was such a unique and interesting style to do it in, and because of that, it definitely helped. I really initially I was really put off by it because like it looks so basic and just low production. I was initially like, "Yo,
Like, yeah,
this doesn't
when
look
I first
good."
well
But once
when
you
I
keep
first
on
saw
watching,
when I
yeah, go ahead.
well, when I first saw key art for it, I was a little concerned. I'm like, this is very, very different from the rest of your work. Are you sure you want to do this?
And then like you keep on watching, you're like, It's Trigger," and like we'll see how it goes. You keep on watching, and the art style you don't even notice it anymore after like 5-10 minutes in. You're just captured by it, and you don't even pay attention. You soon realize, holy shit, this looks beautiful, and how it's done is great. It's a very different style, sure, but it looks fantastic. I've seen a lot
Yeah,
of shows done in the same style and everything with the CGI, cell shaded, all that. And there's a
yeah.
lot of them that just look terrible. I'll be honest. A lot of them that just look horrifying.
Well, yeah, I would honestly say there's a greater proportion of CGI in anime that looks bad than looks good.
Yeah, but them, they balanced it so beautifully that I didn't even notice anything. I was just captured by it all.
Yeah, I certainly think that we saw enough good CGI and good effects work within this to say that they definitely pulled off their animation well, and I would also argue that they pulled off using the cel shaded art style very well. And also like the pastel colors that they went with for everything it was a departure from Trigger's work, but also at the same time I wasn't surprised by it.
I'm
I
gl-
certainly wasn't put off by it.
I'm glad they used such a variety of colors. It wasn't just like a generic shade of whatever to throughout the anime. No, it was a rainbow of colors. I really
Yeah,
appreciated that. Like it was
yeah.
beautiful.
And that also, I think, played into the character designs that they went with because a lot of the character designs draw heavily on previous characters from Trigger anime. Obviously, the main character, Gallo, is very reminiscent of Kamina from Gurren Lagann, which technically isn't a Trigger work, but most of the people that ended up going to Trigger worked on Gurren Lagann. Um, um, what was the fucking... keep forgetting her name. The girl that the the lowly infant Thyma.
Time, yeah.
Thyma. She kind of reminded me a lot of Mako from Kill la Kill.
Wait,
um,
are you talking
there.
about Daima or Lucia?
No, I'm talking about Thyma. The like the young girl that really. I keep calling her Inventor Girl because she was the one that kept coming up with the
Here,
different tools that they
look
used.
in Uber conference real quick.
Uh, okay, thank you for telling everyone what we use. Um, yes, that person.
Yeah, Lucia.
Oh, I thought her name was Thyma. Never mind.
Look at the thing.
Anyway,
It says Lucia.
anyway, fuck you, fuck you. Yeah, she reminded me a lot of Mako, like her personality and everything. Um, and I think the character designs that they went with really suited the art, the cel shaded art style.
It did, and honestly, she was one of the better looking characters of the whole show, and she was just a side character. Is the surprising thing.
Oh, and also, the what was the rat's name? I forget.
I don't remember. I honestly.
Vinny. Vinny was the rat's name. It's definitely a callback to Buta from Gurren Lagann.
Yeah, yeah. Like that's all that little rat was. I'm honestly a bit sad about the fact that we didn't get to see even more of the side characters and such because like I honestly could
Yeah.
have
Oh,
spent like a extra 20 minutes easily with those just learning about them and all that.
that kind of goes back to what I was saying toward the beginning of this. Like, I was really thinking as this movie kept going on, I'm like, this would really work as a series, you know?
It
When
really
we
would.
probably get more backstory and background stuff on the other characters. Obviously, I'm pretty sure with the way it ended, we won't get any kind of a sequel for this. I'm pretty sure it's just going to be a standalone project of Triggers, and Trigger obviously has a history of not going back to things that they've done in the past, except for Inferno Cop Season 2, which we will apparently never get. Maybe one day. I might be 50 years old, but we'll finally get Inferno Cop Season 2. Also, I do want to talk briefly about the mech designs that were used in the very end. Very good, I'd say. I like the fact that Leo just uses like his burnish powers to change the actual outward design of the mech on command. That was interesting.
It was really unique, and but I really like that. The
Gallo's
professor.
like, I can't fight in this. It looks so basic.
He's like, I can't. I just don't have the motivation. He's a very aesthetic person. I really appreciate that. He's artistic. I love that. And he's like, I can't get myself to like get going in this. And Leo is just like, oh, okay, how about if I do this then? And Gala just goes like, yeah, that's what I'm
Yes.
talking about, my boy.
Yes.
It's
It's like
great.
he changes it and it looks all badass and he's like, my PP is now hard. Oh man, I think the choreography of that mech fight between Gallo Leo and Crave Foresight was really well executed.
The character interactions and like it's again, it started right off the beginning of the movie, and that helped so heavily because you got to change and look at the characters. You just got to live their lives with them throughout the whole movie and like go through what they go through. And I found that really wonderful. Like you just
Yeah,
you got to rock with them. I like that. I really do.
yeah, for sure. All right, well let's wrap this up with talking about something else, that another technical part that I think was done really really well, and that is the soundtrack. Um, oh my god, Hiroyuki Sawano's soundtrack, fucking orgasmic throughout the whole thing. Every piece, every song just literally fit perfect into the action or whatever happened to be going on in the scene. Even the quiet moments with the quiet music was really, really well executed, I thought, and really just really well done.
They did it wonderfully, and I couldn't have asked for more. If I remember right, like there was at least a solid straight hour of soundtrack available, and that's amazing.
Yeah, and I got to give special props to the what is essentially, I guess, the theme song Inferno, which plays toward the very beginning of it, during when they go out on that first firefighting mission. The lyrics are great. It's all in English. All there's like I think 3 songs in the soundtrack that have lyrics. All of them are in English. I thought they were done really, really well. They suited the action just is perfectly. Hiroyuki Sawano's a genius. At some point, I want to do an entire episode about his music on the podcast because he's just that great. Every single soundtrack he has ever done has been absolutely perfect. Is there anything else to say about this except that the fucking music is so good?
It was amazing. I can't wait until like I can buy it because I honestly will. It
Oh,
was
really?
that.
Well, lucky you. You can.
Wait, is it already out?
They released the soundtrack before the movie came out.
Oh shit. Yo,
So the whole thing is out now. I don't know exactly what platforms it is available on outside of Japan. I know that if you have a Japanese iTunes account, you can get it.
I'm hurting after Otakon, but once I get a little moolah back, I'm be getting a new soundtrack.
Yeah, I mean it's really good. It's worth buying if you can find if you want to find a physical copy of it. It's definitely worth buying. I think they actually had a couple at Otakon for purchase, but they were probably gone pretty quick. But yeah, I mean, there's nothing else need to be said. It's Hiroyuki Sawano. Everything he's ever really worked on has just been perfect, and Premiere was no exception. The soundtrack was as close to perfection as I think a soundtrack can be for an anime movie. Also, this is, I believe, the second time he's worked on a Studio Trigger, done a Studio Trigger soundtrack. Yeah, it is only the second time he's worked with Studio Trigger on a soundtrack. The only other time was Kill la Kill, and we see how good that was.
Oh, Alex,
So
I just realized something.
hold on. The moral of this story is that Hiroyuki Sawano should just do all the music for Studio Trigger from now on.
I wouldn't complain. I really wouldn't.
Anyway, what were you gonna say?
Something we forgot to put on the dock. What you think of the Fujoshi moment?
Oh God. Okay, I want to say that I was gravely disappointed in everyone in the fucking theater around me when I saw this. You fucking Fudanshi and Fujoshi cunts. Listen, it was not a fucking lovey-dovey moment. This was a moment of a man trying to save another man's life. Fuck all of you that were like, "Oh my god, the gay is strong."
Obviously, that's literally all it was. Okay, so for context and all that, if you already
Well,
seen the
yeah,
movie. Okay,
yeah,
yeah.
I would hope they've seen the movie if they made it this far in the spoiler cast.
Um, when when Leo is basically burned out and his fire was essentially used up, what little he gave to Gallo, Gallo was like, "Okay, you told me the fire can revive you guys. Here's what you gave me back." And he kissed him using
He
mouth to
didn't
mouth.
kiss him.
Yeah.
Didn't kiss
Okay,
him.
okay. He gave it back to him using mouth to mouth, which does involve kissing someone
Yes.
in a way.
I
Now,
I'm just gravely disappointed in all of you out there who watch this movie and think that's a gay
every
moment. I'm so disappointed. Like, I'm a fucking Fudanshi, and even I'm like, no, calm the fuck down.
let me tell you, when me and all the other Fujoshi in the room saw that, we started screaming like a pack of rabid hyenas. It was great.
But yeah, so to wrap this up, I want to ask you, Chinoda, numerical score out of 10. What are you giving this?
Oof. Oh, 8 out of 10.
Out of 10? I give it a 9 out of 10. I gave it the exact same score I gave both Gurren Lagann and Kill la Kill.
Damn, a
9 out of
straight
10.
9. Why a 9?
I feel like I just enjoyed it so much. I've just become an enormous admirer of Hiroyuki Imaishi's work. I think that he understands what it takes to make something that is, it may not be deep or probing, but it's certainly damn enjoyable. And for someone like me who's getting older and kind of appreciates more deep and impactful stories, the fact that he can still make something like this that's irreverent and crazy and I can still enjoy it as though I'm a 10-year-old, I appreciate that a lot.
Okay, that's solid reasoning. For me, the reason it's a 8 out of 10 and like not a 9 or something, it's because like there were so many things, like the whole movie was just obvious. The whole plot, everything was blatant and obvious. Like if you're like a seasoned watcher of anime or anything at all, really, like even if you read stuff or watch shows, whatever, you typically learn plots, and you can see how you learn to see how things will fold out, what will happen, what characters will die. You basically learn how to call stuff out way before it happens. And I could do that with the whole movie so easily. I was just like, Leo's gonna turn out to be a good guy, just fighting for what's right. Cray Foresight, definitely bad guy, even though you can't tell yet. Just like stuff like that, you can tell really easily that about the movie, and that's like one of the reasons why it's not a higher score for me. It was just way
Hmm.
too obvious for me. But
Okay. I mean,
it was
again,
still,
that's
yeah,
fair.
yeah. And even with that, don't get me wrong, I love the shit out of the movie. I'm
Yeah.
definitely gonna go back and watch it again. When I purchase a movie, I'm gonna sit my friends down. I'm gonna watch it with them. Like, it's one of those movies. I definitely enjoy it. It's not life changing, but hell yeah, it's great.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It gives me that feeling of being a 10-year-old in a candy store again. And it's very rare that a piece of entertainment can make me feel that way.
Yeah,
So I greatly appreciate it.
that's a
If the
lot
plot
of
had
what
made a
Trigger
little
can
more
do.
sense,
Yeah.
if the plot had made a little more sense, I might have actually given this a 10 out of 10.
Oof, oof, that would
But
be.
other than that, I just think like you say, it's insanely enjoyable. It's great. It's great fun, and it's just a hell of a time. Trigger By God, you've done it again.
Trigger, you did it again.
We're not bamboozled.
Oh.
And I think with that, we will wrap up this spoiler cast for Premiere. Thank you all out there for joining us. We hope you enjoyed listening to it, because we always enjoy bringing this kind of stuff to you. If you want to check out previous episodes of the podcast, you can find us on YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, and Spotify. If you want to keep up with what we're doing, you can join us on Discord, Facebook, Twitter, and our website. Shoot us an email if you have any questions, or if you have ideas for topics you would like to see us talk about in the future. Links to all of these things will be down below in the description. As always, I have been your host, Alex, and I will see you next time. Say goodnight, Shinoda.
Row, fight the power!
I knew you were going to do that. Hey, Shinoda.
Yeah.
You know how you were mentioning that Premiere was not, like, life-changing or anything?
Yeah?
Do you know what Premiere wasn't?
What was it not?
It was not a brand new animal.
Oh.
Oh!